Welcome to Ordinary People Podcast, where we talk to ordinary people with extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Alan the Great, and today for the Extraordinary Opinion segment, I'm going to talk about something a little different. We're going to go off the normal course that I usually go of motivating and trying to inspire and convince you to chase your dreams. Today, I want to talk about something that happened in current events, something that's been trending over the last few days. I want to give my opinion about the Steve Harvey Donald Trump meeting and the meeting with other celebrity African Americans who have been meeting with Donald Trump. I want to give my opinion on that. I also want to give my opinion on other important topics that we should be focusing on and why we should be focusing on more important topics than just a meeting with a celebrity and our new president, Donald Trump. Now, in case you haven't heard or haven't seen it, or you've been living under a rock for the past few days, what happened was Steve Harvey went to meet at Trump Towers with our new president Donald Trump to speak about housing, the housing projects in the inner city and urban neighborhoods, and the issues with the housing. Um, Based off the what Steve Harvey said on his show, and if you haven't heard it yet, you can search YouTube and you can find out what he gave his side of the story of how this whole thing played out. I'm not going to put it on here, but you can look it up on YouTube and find his insert on him explaining the meeting, how the meeting started, and what they talked about. And I'm just going to give you a small little synopsis based off of what I heard. Basically, what Steve Harvey said that Donald Trump didn't actually reach out to him for the meeting, but however, his Donald Trump staff have reached out to Mr. Harvey to meet with him to discuss the subject. After speaking about golf, amongst other things, they got into Steve Harvey basically mentioning that there needs to be change within the inner city in these project neighborhoods, in these inner city neighborhoods that's experiencing a lot of poverty. With that being said, Steve Harvey said that Donald Trump called Ben Carson right then and there, who's now, I believe, the secretary that handles the urban environment and housing and such, and basically discussed the issues that Mr. Harvey was speaking about. Afterwards, Steve Harvey said he experienced a lot of backlash. Of course, people weren't from the African American community wasn't too happy with Steve Harvey speaking on and discussing having a conversation with our new president, Donald Trump. For multiple reasons, there's issues and seem to be still a division between Donald Trump and his supporters in the African American community. But Steve Harvey expressed his feelings towards the backlash, and he felt hurt by it. Well, now that I gave you the backstory, let's get into my opinion on it. The first thing I want to say, and I want to just put this on the table right from the beginning, and I'll ask a question. Not even ask a question, I'm going to give a statement based off my opinion. I don't remember electing Steve Harvey, Kanye West, or anyone else my official spokesperson, or the official spokesperson of African Americans. And with that said, here's my reason for my questioning and wondering why are people so upset with his meeting with Donald Trump or Kanye West or any other African American. They're not my spokesperson. They don't speak for me. I have my own voice and I can speak for myself. My platform may not be as big as Steve Harvey's yet. And I emphasize the words yet. However, I still haven't authorized him or anyone to speak on my behalf. So what he chooses to do and who he chooses to speak with and what they choose to talk about doesn't really concern me because his opinion is not my opinion. Just like this segment is based off my opinion, my extraordinary opinion, and it doesn't represent every African American or every person's opinion on these subjects I'm speaking on. It's simply my opinion, and you're welcome to disagree with my opinion. I always tell people, please disagree with my opinion. If you do, just all I ask for is respectfully disagree with it. You can always contact me. I gave you my email, told you comment on YouTube. There's ways you can contact me and disagree. However, all I ever ask for is respected. And with Steve Harvey, do I agree with him speaking to Donald Trump about the the issues with urban environments and the housing in these impoverished communities? No, I don't. But here's why I don't agree with it. Steve Harvey may came from the environment. So did I. But I don't live in the projects anymore. I don't live in those neighborhoods no more. So, and not only I don't live there, I don't spend a lot of time there. So, yes, maybe when I lived there, I could understand the plight a little bit more. Yes, I can give you a little more insight when I lived there. But here's the problem: I haven't lived there in over 10 years. So I understand what they're going through, but I can't, from the point of view of being there right now, I can't give you that insight. I can't tell you what they need, what they don't need. I can't tell you what you need to do. I can give you my opinion, yes, but my opinion can only go so far because I'm not there. I'm not there. And if you truly want to speak to someone about what needs to be changed in these communities, I think you should reach out to leaders in the community, people who are still in those communities, that lives there every day or just spends time there every day, who's in touch with those communities. Now, don't get me wrong. Steve Harvey does do a lot of charity work and does a lot to help people, especially in impoverished communities, especially with the African American community. And that shouldn't be glossed over or overlooked in this situation. However, it still stands that maybe he's just not the person that you should speak to about this type of subject. Maybe if you're truly interested in making a change, there needs to be more outreach into these communities and talking to these people. That's where it should lie. Because see, when you're talking to celebrities about issues that they haven't encountered in Lord knows how long, or not truly in touch with and entrenched with every day, then it kind of gives off the perception to our community that you're just doing this and using them as a puppet to hopefully heal that division in between the African American community and Donald Trump. And that's what it comes across as. Now that we got that out the way, let's talk about what should be focused on. I spoke to a good friend of mine right before doing this podcast. A good friend of mine asked him about the Steve Harvey. I asked him his opinion about the Steve Harvey backlash and him talking to Donald Trump. And he simply replied to me with simply saying that he felt that he didn't spend a lot of time looking into it, but he also felt that it was a distraction and that his focus is on the violence in the community and trying to uplift the youth. I respect him. I respect that opinion. I respect that reply. And it also made me want to speak on that. So let's touch on it. Let's talk about Chicago. Let's talk about all the murders and the increase in murders over the last few years. Let's talk about all the murders in the black community. Let's talk about Wilmington, Delaware. Let's talk about it being called Murder Town, USA, and they wanted to do a TV show on it. Like it's some kind of joke. Let's talk about all the cities that's been stuck in, been dealing with all this, not only poverty, but violence. Let's talk about Baltimore. Let's talk about Philadelphia. Let's talk about D.C. Let's talk about New York. See, where's the conversation at about trying to change what's going on with the youth killing each other? With all the desensitized people who are desensitized against violence. You got people recording fights, recording people getting killed, people getting murdered on Facebook Live and they're posting it. People are desensitized towards murder and violence. Where's the talk about that? Where's the talk about jobs leaving our communities? We keep talking about housing. Yes, it's important. But what about the other things? Let's talk about the issue between the police department and the community. Let's talk about police brutality. Let's talk about police officers being hunted. Where's the conversations about that type of stuff? Where's the conversation with the people who are truly trying to make change? Now, one of the things Steve Harvey said, and I actually agree on, because, on this podcast, if you have listened to it, you'll often hear me say, the only way to provoke change is through conversation. Now, he did say that the same thing I've been saying to y'all. We got to have conversation. You got to go to the table and talk to these people if you want change. Now, the people who are standing back and on the computers and basically don't want to have these conversations, you got to ask yourself, what are you trying to do to help? What are you trying to do to provoke change? Or are you just comfortable with the status quo and the way everything's going? If you are comfortable with it, then it's fine. Be comfortable with it, but don't complain about when that crime hits your doorstep. Don't complain when as they say, the chickens start to come home. Don't complain about it. And for y'all out here now who thinking, well, this doesn't affect me, the police brutality doesn't affect me because I live good, and I live in a good neighborhood. I never had a bad encounter with the police, or I'm rich, or I'm Caucasian, or I'm Asian, and you know what? Whatever happens to African American and police, it doesn't really affect me. Well, let me just say this. Even if you're standing on that mountain, if the flood keeps going without anybody plugging that flood, eventually it's going to reach the top of that mountain. And eventually the problem that the people who are facing at the bottom of the mountain is going to become a problem for you. And when you decide that it's a problem for you and that you want to make a change, most likely it's going to be too late to change the problem, to fix the problem, to fix that flood. Because at the point it's at your doorstep and it's at your feet, it's beyond the ideal repair. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. We do have an issue with the police in our community. We do have an issue with housing. We have an issue with homelessness. We have an issue with people not having enough food to eat. Yes, we have an issue with police who are doing their job. Innocent police who are not out here killing black people, who are not out here being racist, being murdered, being hunted down. And we have a bigger issue with people only focused on their own self-interest. Your own self-interest. What I mean by your own self-interest is what affects you right now. Which means your wallet, your way of living, your job, your social status. That's all you're focused on. So that homeless person you step over, that doesn't really bother you. It doesn't bother you until his plight becomes your plight. And what I mean by that is, think about when we went through a recession and all those people who lived in that high class living, they started having to fold to food stamps. When they start having to experience the possibility of losing that big house they had, losing that high paying job they had. They went from a vice president to being a pizza delivery man. Then you got issue. Then it's a problem. See, then that homeless person's plight becomes your plight, and then you can see eye to eye with him. See, his self-interest become your self-interest. So you got people on the police side, they're worried that their husbands, fathers, uncles, nephews, sons who are wearing that badge going out, they're worried about them being killed. Then you got African Americans on the other side worried about their sons, their nephews, their uncles, their dads going out here being killed by the police. And our own self-interest keeps us division, and we're standing on two different sides staring each other down. African Americans staring at the police and the people who are backing them and saying, y'all are the enemy. The police and the people who stand behind the police are looking at the African Americans and looking at them saying, y'all the enemy. Then you got the people who are standing in the middle and they're saying, well, this doesn't affect me either way because you know what? I don't have any family member that's a police officer, so I don't have to worry about them getting killed. And I'm living good, and I live in a big house, and I got a lot of money, so this is not going to affect me because I'm rich. So why would they want to mess with me? I'm not committing crimes. And it don't affect you until that person who thought they was living in that high class house and that their social status didn't affect them start getting their butts kicked by a cop or somebody they know get killed by a police officer. Then it affects you. Then you realize you're not protected by that gated community. You're not protected because you're Caucasian. You're not protected because your uncle or your dad's not a police officer. Your cousin might be. And you might not have spoken to him in a few months, but you still love him. And it starts to affect him. See, we got to make our self-interest everybody else's self-interest. We have to include everybody's self-interest in ours. We have to understand if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. I get it. You don't want people to talk to Donald Trump because we have issues with some of the things he said, a lot of things he said, a lot of things he's done, and how he represents the country. Listen, I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not a fan of what he's done and said. I'm not a fan of how he carries himself. But then again, that's my opinion. And he may be able to look at me and say the same thing as may others. But I'm allowed to have my opinion on that. I would like him to represent the office, the country a different way. But I also have to give him a chance to. I understand that. But I don't have a choice whether to give him a chance to. I don't. Nor do you. He is the elected president. We have to give him a chance. I don't mind him talking to African Americans. But if you're going to talk to someone and you're interested in making a change, talk to the people who actually have boots on the ground that can make that change. Don't talk to the police officer who's been retired for 30 years about the plight of police officers who out here every day putting their life on line. Go talk to that police officer who's out on the beat every single day in these neighborhoods. Go talk to him about making a change in what police need. Don't go talk to an African American who lived in the projects 50 years ago about what's the plight of the people who live in there and what they need in them urban environments, what do they need as far as housing and changes. Talk to the people who live there, to people who have boots on the ground that understands and have experience with what's going on in the environments. If you're truly about making change, then talk to the right people about change. And for the people who are doing the backlash, look, you can do what you want. If you feel that taking shots at Steve Harvey and being upset with him, I'm not defending him in no sense of the word. I have no ties to him, don't know him, don't have no reason to defend him. But what I am saying is that it's easy to take shots and a lot harder to try to find something, a way to change the problem that we all are dealing with. And that's all I have ever tried to come across with these podcasts, that we have to do our due diligence to make a change. Find a solution to these problems. Listen, I'm an African American. I'm fearful. I'm fearful because I have two sons. I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. I have a father. I have uncles. I have a grandfather. And I'm fearful because I do see on the news, on social media, African Americans being killed by police for simple things like traffic stops, for simple things like reaching their glove department to get their insurance cards. I'm very fearful. I'm fearful because I'm not out to break the law, but it doesn't matter in some cases. In some cases, it doesn't matter if my intentions are not to break the law. It could be a simple misunderstanding, a simple movement, a simple misjudgment that could end my life, that could end my kid's life, to have my wife, my children see me die and have to relive it online. I'm fearful of that. And believe me when I say this, there's many other people in the African American community that's fearful with it as well. But I also understand that there's police officers who are fearful of walking out here with that badge on and fearful of getting in that car, just doing their job and getting killed. I'm conscious of that. I'm conscious of that as well. I'm conscious of all these things. I'm not a police officer. I don't understand their plight. But I understand it. And I'm very sympathetic of what they have to go through. And I appreciate the good ones who are out here that's trying to do their job. Because not all police officers are bad. But understand something. Not all African Americans are bad either. Not everyone that wear a hoodie is out to rob you. Jewelry is not a drug dealer. Driving a nice car don't mean I'm a drug dealer. We're not all threats. Not all police officers are threats. Not all African American are threats. I get it, but we have to recognize that and recognize this division that we have in between us and do something to change it. And it has to be through conversation, but it has to be through conversation with people who have boots on the ground, not people who are so separated from it they truly don't understand. I get it. Once again, some people doing charity, I get it. You speak to people. I don't want to speak to the third person. I want to speak directly to the source. Because only when I speak directly to the source can I get the problem. Steve Harvey, yes, he does work with these charities and stuff, but at the end of the day, he's a third person. He's not directly having boots to the ground. If I talk to the source, I get the information directly. We need to talk to police officers who are in these communities. We need to talk to African Americans who are in these communities who are really dealing with these issues on a daily basis. That's the only way you're truly going to provoke change, if you're really interested in making change. We also have to respect people's opinion and understand that you got to stop getting mad. I'm going to speak directly to my African American community real quick. Stop getting mad when a celebrity disappoints you. You don't know them. You like them because they tell a joke or they make a good song, but you don't know them. And when you don't know people, what you have to understand is they're more than likely are going to disappoint you. Because your perception of them, that reality that you create for them, might not be their reality. It might not be who they are. And is it their fault that you created a false reality for that person? No. You shouldn't be looking up to that person. Look up to the people who you know. The people who you can come in contact with directly, that you know directly. And that's the person you should be looking up to. They are not our spokesperson. They're a person that speaks their opinion. With all these cameras and microphones and stuff, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook Live and all this good stuff, we all can have an opinion now. We all can be a member of media. So if you have something you want to say, if you want to let your voice heard, then let your voice be heard. But put some thought into it. And say what you need to say, and stop allowing and giving people that title that they represent you. Because when you give them that backlash, when you say you give them that feeling of disdain because they said something, you're basically telling them that you speak for me. Steve Harvey don't speak for me. I speak for me. And you speak for you. But if you want to speak, let's speak about change in our community. Let's speak about change in this violence. Let's stop talking about police officers should start telling about the bad ones. Let's talk about us in the African American community need to stop with this stop snitching crap and start telling the people in our community who's doing wrong. Who's affecting our property values, who has your grandmother scared to go to her mailbox, who's killing the people at the corner store that is a pillar of your community. You can't tell somebody else to tell on their family when you're not willing to tell on yours. Put some thought into what you're saying and you're doing, in your actions. And for those who might look at me like, oh, well, I'm not going to snitch and all that, well, fine, don't. Don't tell. But do me a favor. Don't complain about what issues that face you. And don't try to put down the people who are trying to fight for a change. You got a voice, you got an opinion, let it be heard. But let it be heard for change, not for setback. Stop complaining and do something about it. That's what you should be doing. We have to find common ground, and we have to look at people and say, look, your self-interest is mine. Because at the end of the day, when I'm going to reiterate this again, when that flood gets to that peak of the mountain, it's not going to matter how high your status is. It's not going to matter how much money you have. It's not going to matter that you fly on first class or you drive the nicest car. It ain't going to matter. Because when it hits your shoe, then it's going to be your problem too. It's going to be your problem too. And by that point, it's going to be very little that you can do that can change it. That can change what's going to happen, how it's going to play out. History has told us one thing. And what history has told us is that division will never cause change and prosperity in making us great. Think about it. Segregation didn't make us a greater country. The Holocaust didn't make us a greater world. When the Japanese during World War II were put in concentration camps in America, it didn't make us a greater country. Those are all civil rights movement, slavery, all black eyes in this world. In this country, around this world has been nothing but black eyes. So if we continue with this division because of class, because of you're the police, and because we're black, because you're white, because they're Asian and Latino, we continue this division because of Muslims and Christians, what do you think that's going to do? That's just another black eye we're leaving in history. Aren't you tired of black eyes? I don't see people walking around with black eyes on them thinking it's cool. So why are we doing it? It's time for us to come together. See, we're all the same. We're all people. Respect each other's opinion. Respect each other's choices. Respect each other's religious beliefs. It's time for us to come together as people. If the police have an issue where they need to be trained and they don't know how to deal with the African American communities, then they need to be trained. We need to do a better job training those police officers to make sure that they know how to deal with African Americans so they don't have to walk around with the fear of them. Get out in the community, talk to the people, get to know them. You have to do your due diligence, your due diligence so that you get out there, just talk to the people. We're not all bad. Some of us are good. A lot of us, majority of us are really good. Majority of us are hard-working people. Get out there. If you're going to work in the community, you need to get to know the community. If you're African American, don't keep teaching your kids all police are bad. Don't keep teaching your kids that one day they'll be in prison. Get out there. You don't have to snitch to talk to police. You need to get to know the people who are serving you. You need to. When you go buy food, you want to know who's making your food. You want to see them making your food. Or you should feel the same way about the people who are paid to protect you. You need to know who they are, what they're about, where they stand. It's time for us to come together. Let's take a step together to make all of our self-interest the same. And that's to make proper change and movement to the future. Positive movement. Let's stop the division. Our history tells us our future. That's a statement that I often make to people. Our history tells us our future. What do I mean by that is that if you keep making the same choices that you made in history, you're going to get the same results. And the problem with us is we continuously do it. History has proven that. We make the same decision over and over again throughout history, and we come back to the same results. Let's stop turning left. And when we get to that fork in the road, let's turn right and see where that takes us. This is the Ordinary People Podcast, where we talk to ordinary people with extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Alan the Great, and this has been the Extraordinary Opinion segment. I want to thank y'all for listening, and remember, please, if you like this video, like it on YouTube, comment and let me know if you agree with my opinion or disagree. If you don't feel comfortable disagreeing with my opinion or agreeing with my opinion on YouTube or comment section, then you can always email me directly at ordinarypeoplepodcast, the number 16 at gmail.com. Once again, it's ordinarypeoplepodcast, the number 16 at gmail.com. Please email me, let me know what you think, whether you agree or disagree with my opinion, or if you have a subject you want to hear my opinion on. I want to thank you for listening, and remember to subscribe to my channel, Alan the Great, on YouTube.com. Thank you for listening again. Peace.